Hi, my name is Ryan Young, and today I'll be discussing juvenile courts for today's OER. Essentially what a juvenile court is, it's a court that has the authority to pass judgment on those who are under the age of 18. A juvenile court is a special court or a department of the trial court. They usually deal with underage defendants who are charged with crimes or are neglected. The normal age of these defendants is under 18, but the age majority changes based on the state or nation that these individuals are tried in. Now, juvenile courts do not have jurisdiction in cases in which minors are charged as adults. This can relate to cases that are very serious or that they can be tried as an adult due to their awareness of their actions, and we'll get into that later. Two topics that come up when discussing juvenile courts is delinquency. Delinquency is simply crimes committed by minors, so that's one term. Another term is dependency. Dependency just includes cases where a non-parental person is chosen to care for a minor due to the parent's inability or unwillingness to take care of a child. Some other models that are associated with the juvenile court are the restorative model and the criminal model. Now, the restorative model can be used in juvenile courts when passing sentencing to repair the harm caused by the conflict. For instance, if a case happens where a juvenile commits a crime, then the solution to that could be rehabilitation or being sent to a mental institution. In comparison to the criminal model, and a criminal model is basically that they are judged as an adult, and this can also relate to the crime control model, but it's basically just based on the severity of the crime, and that individual or child, minor under 18, can be tried as an adult if the offense was premeditated and the offender was aware of their actions. So those two models play a role, and at the end of a case, deciding, okay, will the solution to this crime involve the restorative model or the criminal model? And that's where some people agree with some judgments and some people don't. And we'll get into cases of examples like that. But cases involved in juvenile court can be things such as traffic cases, unruly cases, neglect cases, abuse cases, dependent cases, custody cases, and paternity cases. Things like that. Some common offenses that occur can be theft, larceny, alcohol offenses, disturbing the peace, drug offenses, vandalism, assault, robbery, criminal trespass, you name it. So the two cases that usually are good examples of that relate to a juvenile court is the George Zimmerman case. Now, this wasn't a crime that was prosecuted against Trayvon Martin. This was against George Zimmerman, so it was a criminal case, and it became a huge thing, and it's widely known. But Trayvon Martin was 17, and he was underage himself. Had the roles been reversed, then Trayvon would be going to a juvenile court, and he could have been charged as a criminal, or been charged in a rehabilitative way that involved an institution or something like that, or some sort of mental counseling. So that can relate to the George Zimmerman case if the situation was flip-flopped. Now, it also, and like I said before, the restorative model and the criminal model, some people, disagree, where some people are passed very harsh sentences and other people, they get kind of the lighter end of the stick due to the circumstances, and some people don't agree. In this case, George Zimmerman, there's a lot of controversy. There's also another case that relates to juvenile cases, is a case involving Javerick Henderson. So he murdered his grandma and claimed that the cuts and all the blood was from harming himself. And so the teen's father, after he murdered them, this was one of the witnesses, or not the witness, but just somebody who knows him. The teen's father told police that he had concerns because he had been playing a Momo video game, which is a horror video game, and another one called Jeff the Killer, and had been spending time playing games. Now this can affect his mental ability, and thus that was the father's perspective. So that's one case that involves the juvenile case, and hence, given the father's perspective, it can go either way. You can go depending on the case, was it premeditated and did he know what he was doing? And we'll get into the three things that dictate whether they can be tried as an adult or not. So in general, minors face an entirely different justice system as compared to from adults. The difference is that the juvenile system just focuses on reform and rehabilitation, while adult is just punishment. Three things that I found in resources on this. There's several factors to determine punishment, but these three are what I found was premeditation, degree of violence, and awareness of wrongdoing. So if those three boxes are checked, then okay, they could be considered to be tried as an adult. Now, in the eyes of the court, minors are less likely to understand that they're doing something wrong. The violence could be due emotionally, or their circumstances, or their environment, or, and their brains also aren't developed yet, so there's things like that. They could have a toxic home environment. So there's a lot more factors involving juveniles in comparison to an adult. So, but if evidence suggested that it's premeditated and they knew what they were doing, then yeah, they could be moved to an adult court. So then here's another case that I looked at, is two girls, they were both 12 at the time. They lured and stabbed another child 19 times. The girls were allegedly committed the crime in honor of Slenderman, which is a video game. And one of the girls' name was Morgan Geyser, so you could look at the Morgan Geyser case. But they were responsible for stabbing her, and she was sentenced to 40 years in a mental institution. It had proof of premeditation, and it was a horrible crime, and they were aware of the things that they did wrong. And due to this fact, they were tried as adults. So that's a case where they knew what they were doing, they knew it was wrong, they simply saw a video game, and that could have, inhibited, their judgment. But regardless, they knew what they were doing, and they knew it was wrong. And so, in comparison to both those cases, Javerick Henderson, which I spoke about earlier, who murdered his grandma, he faces years and years and years and years, I think decades behind bars, comparison to Morgana Geyser, where she's sentenced 40 years in a mental institution, whereas Henderson's in jail. So jail is more of a harsh punishment in comparison to a mental institution where they focus on rehabilitation. So those are the things that I found on juvenile courts. Now these are just the basics, but I feel it's really informative. Even just for me, I just was able to get a basic understanding of, okay, it deals with minors, here's the two models that involve juvenile cases, and I think that basically sums up the basic understanding. Anyway, thank you for your time, appreciate it.